Oh my gosh, the podcast is back
What?
for another week.
Good Lord.
Despite
Ross had a good time.
the crazy rock and roll intro, it gets me hyped, yo. It gets me hyped to have discussions about the state of video games or movies or what.
Punch fights on the subway platform.
Well, someone has to call this nonsense out. And we are going to be one of the 5 million voices that do so.
But the best one.
Wow, yes.
Exactly.
The highest quality podcast talking about these sorts of topics. Regardless, it was funny, I was talking to Silver last week, and she was like, I was sitting there doing homework, and in my head, like, the intro song kept going through her head because it's catchy.
Yeah, see?
Press start, but mesh from the heart. Yeah. It's pretty great. And you know what? I'm proud of all of the absurd amount of work I did into the intro.
You should be. Good.
It's good. On top of that, we the long-awaited Bond review between me and Ross finally got out for the Sean Connery years.
Yay!
It took me a while, but I got everything together, and
Bless
yeah,
him.
I had a lot of fun with it. And if you like Bond, it's worth a listen to.
Yeah, I highly recommend. It's a good listen. I feel like we have fun points. It's an interesting era of Bond, obviously, the beginning era. Highly recommend.
Yeah, Sean Connery and Lazenby thrown in there.
Yeah, because gotta have the odd man out.
Also look forward to Roger Moore's era, or Jason joins us for bad discussions about Roger Moore.
Yeah!
We have to watch them first, and I haven't watched any of these movies.
Yeah, it's Rhett's first time going through them, so it's kind of fun. It's fun doing that with Rhett, because not new to Bond, but new to these Bonds.
Yeah. Also, Ross has a new animation for his figure.
Yes, I do. I'm shooting at spiders on the ceiling. I don't like them.
Well, as long as the belt for your gun stays consistent, doesn't disappear, and also the barrel doesn't extend randomly.
Hey, listen, sometimes that happens, you know? It's a thing.
Look, this is a work in progress. Jason's just
Love it.
doing kata over here. It's a special
Tai Chi.
podcast. So there's been a few things to come out this week. We had the Super Bowl, the State of Play from Sony. But one thing hit me was what was going on with Highguard. I don't know if you guys are plugged in at all to the events going on with Highguard.
I mean, I've heard a little
Somewhat.
teeny bit, but
So this game came out called Highguard. I believe it's a free to play, and you're going to be hearing this from people who don't play Highguard or know anything about it. I don't really have any preconceived notions about this game.
No.
I just don't know. And the game came out to extremely poor results. All-time peak of 97,000 on Steam with 2,600 on the 24-hour peak. It crashed and burned horrifically.
yeah, that's not so good.
Just a massive tumble off of this game. And this isn't, I mean, this happens every now and then. A game comes out and it does really poorly. Concord
Right.
had this problem where it dumped, but we all kind of expected the problems with Concord because Concord
Yeah.
had a lot of political messaging and all that sort of thing.
And there was a lot of build-up to Concord, too.
Yeah, Sony was pushing
I don't
real
know
big.
that I've heard anything about Highguard.
Right.
What I mean? Not a lot of hype, not a lot of ads.
As a result, too, most of Highguard Studio has been laid off.
Oh, sorry, everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
It performed really poorly, and the result was most of the studio being dumped out. Yeah, I believe this was an indie studio too, which is unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hope and expectation behind this game. And look, that we could try and do a post-mortem of what really happened with this game. And how I don't know how interesting that would be for most audiences, because it's like, I don't know about Highguard, I don't care about Highguard. They came out with a game, nobody liked it, and whatever, and it just dumped. That's not really the most interesting aspect of reviewing this, because those who might be interested in what's going on with the industry and why a game might fail might be curious about that story, but I think a general audience isn't. What is interesting is we got a response from one of the guys laid off. And he wrote a really interesting, I guess, response to what had happened as a developer. And I would actually like to sit down and read some of what he had to say, because there was part of it where I was like, what are you talking about? And part of it where I was like, I don't know, maybe. Let's see. The day leading to the Game Awards 2025 was amongst the most exciting in my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seemed bright. Everyone I knew had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this game all day. The internal pre-reveal feedback, even from unbiased sources, was quite positive. And where it was negative, it was constructive and often actionable. People who played the game, including us, had a blast. And since we were an independent, self-published studio, built with royalties in mind, many of us were hoping this could finally be the big thing that broke the millennial financial curse. But then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out how the bias in the folks who give positive reviews after being flown out for event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into the disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not. Let's at least react to that paragraph. Is there a degree of piling on because negative engagement gets 10 times the engagement than positive does?
So, look, I'm not saying that can't be a thing. However, I want you to try to negatively pile on to, like, the Sony Spider-Man game. Or how about GTA 6, the hype for that? Or how about the hype for... I mean, you can pick, like, a bunch of different games that have either been hyped or... And try and be negative about them. What are you going to get? You're going to get people pushing back.
Well, I've done this on Reddit with games like The Last of Us, telling people I didn't like certain parts of the second game, and gotten aggressive downvoting.
Yeah. I think if there is legitimately, if there's, hype for a game, you can try. That doesn't mean it's going to work. Because I remember with the Game Awards, when Highguard was announced, right?
Uh-huh.
And all I remember was people going like, another one of those, huh? In fact, there was actually conspiracy. People thought that slot was supposed to either go to Half-Life 3, to Valve for something, and they last minute gave up their spot. And there was people even going oh, that's a fake game. It's not even real. That was just a placeholder. That's how little people cared. So I have a hard time buying into, well, it just got piled on because it gets so much more engagement. Yeah, if there's an audience for it, if people want to pile onto it. Rhett, there is legitimately with the Fallout show, there is an audience for those who want to hear it get piled on, and there's an audience who will not listen to that, who think you're an asshole for even imagining that.
Well,
so,
is this a result of the element of the internet? I mean,
no.
It's not just the internet, the piling on positive or negative, so to speak.
No, see that's actually an observable phenomenon that's happened that happened pre-internet. Um, if somebody had a bad opinion, this is something that's been studied in like marketing and all that kind of thing. The likelihood that somebody has a bad opinion of a product, they're more likely to share it. They'll share it with 10 times more people than somebody who has a good opinion of a product. Now, I'm not saying that that is the case here, but it is an observable phenomenon that has been documented in the past. So it's not just the internet. However, the internet does have more reach than word of mouth used to have. So there is kind of maybe an amping up, if you will, of
an amplifying of the
phenomenon.
problem.
Yeah, but the problem has always been there.
Okay, interesting. Let's read on a little bit. The hate started immediately. In addition to dogpiling on the trailer, I personally came under fire due to my naivete on Twitter, which almost all of my now former coworkers had learned to avoid during their previous game launches. After setting my Twitter account to private to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos, posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers into my replies. They laughed at me for being proud of the game, told me to get out of the McDonald's applications, and mocked me for listing having autism in my bio, which they seemed to think was evidence the game would be woke trash as of this very emotionally all of this was very emotionally taxing. I don't recall the reputation of the game coming out as being woke trash. I really don't.
I don't remember hearing that either. I just remember hearing it being like, oh my god, another fucking hero shooter. Are you serious?
Yeah, almost.
That's most of what I remember.
Another one of these sort of reaction.
Yeah, I'm not saying there wasn't anybody saying, oh, it's going to be woke crap. I don't remember that. I'm just saying I don't think that was the majority. I'm sure somebody said it. But
I'm sure. With the way the internet is right now and the way gaming is right now, and I shouldn't just say gaming, but like everything media related right now, it's almost like it's a given that somebody will call it woke garbage.
Yeah.
Because like 90% of it is woke garbage.
Well, what about the piling on and the negative feedback and people going after him? See, that's what's so funny about this age. I don't want this to turn into a meta argument, but one of the biggest issues of this last era, with the woke era, the cancellations and whatnot, it started out aggressively left-wing, going after people that they disagreed with. I mean, that's just what it was. And the backlash, the pushback, whether you agree with it or not, the pendulum always swings politically and ideologically. It goes too far one direction, and it swings back, and eventually it starts to push really far the other direction. Can there be legitimate criticisms to the game? Sure. But the problem is when you get a lot of these piling on, because when people disagreed with a show or a movie or a game or something like that, the immediate reaction is, oh, well, these are toxic fans. These are toxic people that are going after my stuff. And then you saw a lot of people exaggerating or even lying about being criticized, because there's an element in the culture right now of sort of, I guess, a pity party, glorifying in how put upon you are, which I mean, there's a whole psychological thing we could go into of why that's a big deal. And then just exaggerating how attacked you are. I mean, there was a lot of stuff about the Kelly Marie Tran stuff from Star Wars, where she got off of Twitter or Instagram or whatever because of all the toxic fans. But then people went out, I was like, there really wasn't that much, or demands for even proof that there was that much. People hated the movie and they didn't like her character, but as far as personal attacks, there were a lot of questions as to whether that was legitimate. And even if it was, there's a desire to exaggerate how bad it is to show how put upon you are or how much a victim you are.
Yeah.
And there is this attitude that exists. I don't even know if it's legitimate that he was attacked or not. But because of the state of the internet culture right now, how am I supposed to know how legitimate his complaints are? Everybody was attacking me going into my Twitter. And especially if you're a public person or working on a very public game, you have to accept the fact that there's going to be criticism. People attacking me for listing having autism. Sure, that I don't know how far to get into that. Look, there's been a overdiagnosis of medical disorders.
Yeah.
That are probably a lot less legitimate than we like to think. And when people have autism in their bio, they tend to respond with your part of the victim culture mentality. Now, you very well could have autism, but they see those as red flags. I'm just trying to explain, not justify, is what I'm trying to do.
Well, my question is, why would you put that on there? Why do you feel the need to put that out there, other than the fact that you want to put yourself in that victim hierarchy and saying, look, I'm here because I have these traits, rather than just having an online profile like Twitter or X as it is now. Why do you feel the world needs to know that?
That's fair. Well, to be honest, a lot of those people use it as part of their identity.
Right. And so that puts them in the victim hierarchy.
Yes.
They're like, you can't pick on me because I have this thing.
Or
like,
you get
seems to be the only
you get understanding and sympathy because you have some sort of mental disorder, or what's the was it? Oh, there's another term for it, where you're like not psychologically normal or whatever it is. Psychologically divergent, something like
neurodivergent. Yeah. Neurodivergent. Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying, Jason.
Well, I was just saying, it kind of goes back to what is the motive that you have for publishing this information about yourself? I guess, we aren't going to understand the reason why you're doing that. I mean, you could tell us that the reason that you're putting it out there is so that you can find people who are like-minded about you, and
that's true.
You're finding a support group. But you could just be telling us that. So we don't know why you're putting that out there, other than what we've seen other people do. And other people tend to use that as a club to beat other people with. You know what I mean?
Is it unfair to look too much into his labeling himself as autistic?
Possibly, but he's the one that brought it up.
That's true, publicly.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ross, of the piling on? Was there a snowball effect? Is it all unfair?
No, I don't think so. And I was just trying to quickly go scrounge through his profile to see what he was saying, but I just barely got to the point where it was right after the Video Game Awards. So, because look, I'm not saying all of this was fair or not at all, but the internet isn't new. This man clearly seems to be millennial to me. Dude, you know what the internet is. You know what it's like. You know what Twitter's like. Twitter is incredibly brutal. Or it can be. And, so I was just wanting to see what he was posting, in replying to everybody, because it's I'm sure he got some unwarranted stuff, it would have happened anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I have more of a feeling he was in people's replies. Almost like running interference, or they're like, no, wait, it's great actually. And it's like, don't do that. Don't engage with that, because it's not going to
don't feed the trolls.
Win your friends. Yeah, it's not useful to you, and it's I would imagine it is very taxing emotionally. So don't do that.
Oh yeah.
And maybe, and if you're autistic, maybe criticism, or maybe you're just a little socially awkward criticism you can take personally. And maybe this isn't something you want to engage with, sir.
Absolutely. Mm.
And if you're, but that sensitive about it, maybe just either ignoring or blocking these people might. But it's like he says when he went private, people went after him for being a coward, and it's like this is the evidence of public discourse. Freedom of speech is an element of you're going to have to be exposed to stuff you don't like. It's not always going to be positive.
Yeah, and that line in particular makes me go, well, you were replying to people and then went private. That's what that makes me think. Because look, if all he was doing was just posting like and reposting like official things or things from the Game Awards or whatever, nobody's gonna like. I mean, some people will, of course, because there's psychos on the internet, but like nobody's gonna be making videos that had big views about like, oh, he went private. Like, no.
Well, he said
because they won't know.
People got millions of views at advertently sending hundreds of angry gamers to talking about him. This is the first time I've heard about him, and it's because he's had a very public response to what has happened with the game.
Yeah, this post. Yeah. So, look, I'm not trying to downplay this man's like experience, perceived or otherwise. I'm just pointing out things that I've noticed on the internet in my 20 some odd years on it. Got almost 30. But, like, yeah, nobody would have noticed you going private if all you had been doing was posting official stuff from your development stuff and reposting things about the game. Like, nobody would have noticed. But you must have been in people's replies, which is foolish. But that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But dude, it's like it's the modern internet. It's internet at all at any time. It can be really brutal.
I agree.
I don't know.
As a weird aside, Ross, for some reason, Band of Brothers is trending in the United States on Twitter.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean. It's a really good show. Well, you should watch it if you haven't. But why now? It's like 25 years later.
No, I'm happy. Anyway, moving on to his commentary, there's much constructive criticism that can be and has been said about Highguard's trailer, marketing, and launch. But I don't think it's my place to commentate on that. All right. I also don't think there's any way to know whether or not the launch would have fared better or worse without the massive spotlight that was thrown onto us in response to the Game Awards trailer placement. But we never got that chance. It is weird for you to speculate that the fact that the trailer was at the Game Awards, that might have had a negative or positive. I mean, no one would have known about your game, I don't think, if it wasn't for the Game Awards.
Well, the fact that people were immediately going like, well, this has got to be a fake game because this is ridiculous. I mean, at best, you wouldn't have gotten heat on Twitter, I guess, because nobody would have known it existed. I don't think the numbers would have been any better.
And here's where sort of his commentary stands at. Like, this paragraph is where we get a lot of responses. He says, "We were turned into a joke from minute one, largely due to false assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as fact. Within minutes, it was decided the game was dead on arrival, and creators now had free rage bait content for a month. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections were flooded with copy-paste meme phrases such as Concord 2 and Titanfall 3 died for this. At launch, we received over 14,000 review bombs from users with less than an hour of playtime. I have 0 hours of playtime. Many didn't even finish the required tutorial."
Wait. So you can't finish the required tutorial in an hour?
I don't think they're. I don't think that's what he's implying. He said,
"No, I think he's saying it's less. Like most of it, like a ton of these had less than an hour. Some even less than that by not even finishing the tutorial."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounded like there was he was saying that. I mean, these review bombs were coming in that had less than an hour, and you couldn't have even played the tutorial in that amount of time.
That would be
to me
hilarious
says
if
this is not a
hero
great
shooter had
game.
that. Yeah, if a hero shooter had that long of a tutorial, that would be very funny.
Well, to comment on at least the playtime, to be fair, games that are quite loved, like Oblivion, that came out recently, it was something like 70-80% of the players that played the game apparently never left the prison.
Yeah.
So this is a common issue where people try it, they decide they don't like it, and they move on. People will make judgments based upon things within a 5-10 minute window really quickly if they're interested or not. And is that fair to the overall arc of whether or not the game is good? No, but they have every right to make quick judgments because there is a glut of content available to them. They have a glut of options to play.
I got criticized once for maligning a book. So there's a book I read. I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head. I read the book, and I didn't really like it. But I happened to have also the second and third books in the series, so I read those and thought, the second book is awesome, so is the third. And I said, if I had only had that first book in the series, I never would have read 2 or 3. But because I had them, I read them anyway. And somebody was like, well, you can't get into it. And I'm like, well, the first book is the gateway into this. And that's with a game here, the first 5-10 minutes, that's a gateway into the game. If you can't hook people in that first 5 or 10 minutes, you're sunk now.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something to be said about people making that snap judgment in that first 5-10 minutes.
Well, and especially in what is essentially a hero raid shooter like Apex Legends or something. Like, yeah, that's like, I don't need an hour or two to figure out if I'm going to like a shooter. I'm sorry. Like, I can find out pretty quickly if it's something I really care about.
To be fair, Jason, it's kind of weird when you don't like a book and you read the 2 sequels.
Like I said, if I didn't already own them, I would have tossed the series aside.
But you're like, well, I got the books. I've got to trudge through something I don't enjoy.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, to be honest, if I got into the second book in the series and it was as bad as the first, the third one would have been in the trash.
Okay, so it got better.
Yeah, it did get better. And the second and third book were picked up and they were great. The first book, it would have stopped me dead if I hadn't already had the other 2. I just was like, oh, this is awful. Why am I reading this? And
all right, fair. I was just I was like, so you just, I don't like this food. I'm going to eat 2 more meals of it, and then, ew, gross. Stop reading the book, Jason, if you don't like it.
I gotta finish it.
I usually do. If I don't like a book, I will put it down and I will walk away from it.
What do you think about the weird assumptions about multi-million-dollar ads and people calling it dead on arrival out the gate? I mean, these are complaints of an internet culture where everybody has to be first to make decisive decisions on whether or not anything is good or bad really quickly. And there's been a lot of bad, and there's been a lot of celebration of the destruction of a lot of... To be fair, there's been a lot of celebrating a lot of studios failing because there's been a sentiment that studios have not been representing them, their fans, their audiences, and being bad stewards of brands by damaging them with political messaging and whatnot. So there can be a degree of piling on, I suppose. But you are a brand new game. It's a lot harder to do that with Assassin's... I mean, they did that more with Assassin's Creed because there's expectations from the fans and stuff. Sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
I don't see anything wrong with a multi-million-dollar ad campaign. That seems par for the course. You have a new game coming out. You want to get people's eyes on it so that they get hyped up about it, so they buy your game. So it makes sense that you would put out a multi-million-dollar ad campaign. I don't see a problem with that. The fact that he is marrying that to the fact that people were saying it was dead on arrival, that could be entirely based on the fact that your ad campaign failed. That maybe you didn't do enough, I don't know, target marketing beforehand to see if what you were going to put out to the players resonated with them from the get-go. I don't really know. It doesn't make sense to me that you're saying, well, people were critical of our marketing campaign. Well, maybe they were critical of your marketing campaign not because of how much you spent on it, but because your marketing campaign was crap.
Well, to be fair, Jason, he said largely false due to assumptions about a multi-million-dollar ad campaign, not an actual $1 million ad campaign.
Well, and
so what was false about it?
They didn't have a $1 million ad campaign.
And I think
Okay.
it's like the assumption that the ad placement at the Game Awards was like $1 million ad placement. It's like, yeah, but that's a safe assumption. Like, what do you want us to like?
That they paid to be at the Game Awards?
Yeah, I mean, which
It makes sense.
why wouldn't like? Yeah, like that's a
Kind of like
safe
the Super
assumption.
Bowl of the game world.
Exactly. Like that's a very. It's not. You're not at a not a developer, but a publisher, like you're not at like Nintendo's announcement thing or Microsoft's or whatever. Like this is a Game Awards thing. Like, yeah, we would assume you got paid to be there. Like you paid to be there. That's my like that. I'm not saying it's a correct assumption, but it's a logical one, surely. Anyway.
In discussions online about Highguard, Concord, and 2XKO and such, it is often pointed out by gamers that devs like to blame gamers for their failures, and that's silly. As if gamers have no power, but they do. A lot of it. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of the gamer culture and that the game would have thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All products are at the whims of consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard, and it worked. Like it was like an ad campaign. I had the discussion with my mother earlier today when we were talking about backlash to a lot of things, like how comics have been received lately, or movies, or whatever. And we were discussing how they do things and then the fans respond negatively, and that the conclusion is to attack the fans for it. Look, if I'm a fan of Superman and they do stuff like make Superman's son's gay, and he goes out and protests for climate change, and I have criticisms of that, that doesn't mean I'm being a toxic fan or I'm trying to pile on. I'm responding as a fan of Superman, as someone who loves the character. Simply because gamers react negatively to something doesn't mean it's illegitimate, even if it sounds over the top or exaggerated or ridiculous. If there was more, I'm catching myself because it's hard to quantify this, because I was about to say, if there was more love of the game and there was this huge negative anti-game atmosphere on the internet, then you might conclude that there's a concerted effort to destroy the game. But people don't like the game, and people are lambasting on the internet. Now, your argument, I assume, would be, Josh, is that because of the negative feedback on the internet is creating people not desiring to play the game. But 97,000 people tried it out the gate and abandoned it. Mm-hmm. Are they all bad faith players in this debacle that we found ourselves in?
I mean, it sounds like he's saying that this game is a great game by any metric you would care to name. But if it wasn't for this negative campaign that started because of whatever he perceives was the starting point, that this would have gone down gangbusters and the company would be on top and just rolling out with Highguard Part 2.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is such a backwards way. Like, Rhett, you and I, we happen to be, here in like there and back fans of wrestling, right? Like we come in and out of it.
Yes.
They are perhaps the most brutal and annoying fan base I've ever witnessed.
Annoying to an nth degree, like just ridiculous.
Yeah, like they can be savage, they can be stupid for their dislike or like of
Unfair.
something. Oh, completely. But other than the times when the booker has their ego wrapped up in a storyline they're going with or a gimmick that they've given a wrestler, generally speaking, and traditionally, I should say, wrestling will drop something, I mean, just so fast if it's not working. Because you know what they want? Your money. They want you to keep coming. They want you to keep paying. They want you to keep paying for pay-per-views. They want you to buy merch from this guy.
Yep.
They want you to do all of this. So if something's not... And again, there's been obvious exceptions. I mean, Jesus, there's a whole wrestling company right now in AEW that, Tony Khan just does whatever the fuck he wants, regardless of what people think, because it's his big playground. But even even excluding that, there's been times where bookers and owners have like their egos wrapped up in things, and they will try and cram things down your throat. And the business suffers for it when they do that. And eventually they will give up, because at the end of the day, they want your money. So, like, I get the feeling, and we've not finished this yet, so I'm not, like, putting an end cap on this, but it sounds like he felt very blindsided by this. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that?
No.
Very much feels that way, yeah.
Well, and if you could see the title of the podcast, I actually point out the toxic positivity. He seemed to have gotten an impression that the game was amazing because of the reactions they were getting internally and from people they flew in.
Yeah.
To review the game. He even recognizes, well, we did fly them in. And a lot of people are going, well, you had an internal culture of this is great, this is amazing, the game's doing really well, everybody's saying it's going to be awesome. And then feeling blindsided when the game comes out and it's not good. And you could read between the lines, which is sort of my implication with the title of the podcast, is there was a degree of toxic positivity. That they internally were just high-fiving each other and reassuring each other that everything was fine when it wasn't fine. There's an element in business that, if you're not involved in business, you might not be aware of, that it's very, very difficult to get accurate assessments of from consumers or from, let's say, people who frequent your restaurant or something. People show up. What usually happens, let's say at a restaurant, is someone shows up, they eat your food, maybe you ask them, it's like, oh, is everything okay? And you're like, yes, everything's fine. And then they go home and they never come back. They quietly disappear. And this is what most consumers do. They just quietly stop frequenting your restaurant. And it's really, really important to get accurate feedback as to how you're doing. And trying to find out why that person never came back. It's like, maybe it was undercooked. Maybe you didn't like the flavor. Maybe this, and that. But most people don't complain like that. They just disappear. And so when you get nothing but positive reinforcement for how you're handling things, you end up in a situation where you don't realize that there's a problem at the core, that there's a reason why people aren't showing up to your showing up to your restaurant, or in this case, gonna play your game. And then it comes out, and like Ross said, you feel blindsided, like, I don't know why this is happening. And your response isn't, what did we do wrong? Why isn't this game resonating? Is it repetitive? Are there too many games like this? Does it not stand out? Is it bad? Is it genuinely bad? Your reaction is, there's a toxic pile-on of fans and gamers because they love to see things fail. That's how you react to it. Attacking your consumers and the gamers that want to play your games is never the best solution for creating success. It's never going to work. It doesn't work with movies. When nobody shows up to see a movie and they're like, oh, well, they're racist and bigoted and toxic and stuff. And it's like, that doesn't make them want to see it. That just makes them not want to see it. You see where I'm getting at with this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something occurred to me, but then it left.
lost it.
So if it comes back, I'll say something.
Sorry, Ross, we were interrupting you on your commentary.
No, you're good. It's just, well, we got a little bit more to go, and then I'll have more to say. So you keep going.
Okay.
Oh,
What's that,
I
Jason?
remember what I was going to say. So, do we know anything about these playtesters that they flew in?
Not that I've
No,
heard.
I don't. I think
Okay.
they were probably influencers. But my assumption is they're probably influencers to some degree, or gamer YouTube people or something.
Hmm.
Can I at least
So
read?
they may have already been biased towards the game anyway.
Well, we had that with Rings of Power, where they flew in a bunch of people for this big premiere, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so amazing!" And there were all these big influencers on YouTube and whatnot, and then everybody hated the show, and they're like, "Well, why is this?" Because you're going after. There's a thing called access that's very desirable to a lot of people, like influencers and YouTubers and stuff. And this has been a thing for years and years, for movie reviewers, decades in the past. And that's, if Disney invites you to see your movie early so they can do a review and you lambast their movie, they will not invite you back. And there's a degree of excitement and desire to have access to these things and not be shut out. So you lean into a positive response to the movie. You're like, oh, it's amazing. And then you give positive responses in your reviews so that you keep getting invited to big Hollywood parties or big Hollywood premieres, even though you don't really get that much in return, except for the fact that you get access to the glamour that is Hollywood. And you get that with a lot of other industries, like gaming. Rings of Power was a perfect example. All of those people were influencers that were paid to fly out to this big premiere. They all gave glowing reviews. And then you saw one of the people that were super excited about that. Oh, have you seen Rings of Power yet? No. Well, all right. You acted like this was the most exciting thing ever, and I'm super hyped to see it. And that's how disingenuous a lot of these people on the internet are. They don't really care. It's all about access. It's all about getting the views and the clicks. It's all about being invited to the fancy parties, the kickbacks, the little gift bags and whatever. Oh, I got to see it before anybody else. It was bad. And a lot of the backlash to the journalist community, especially in the nerddom, was how they were basically disingenuous and overinflating reviews because they want early copies and they want access to things. And you might go, well, why is it that big a deal to get early copies to stuff? Well, most of your views on your review are going to happen within that first day or two. And if you don't get access to the game when everybody else does, then you're going to have to take a week or so to play it and understand the ins and outs of the game. And by the time your review comes out, nobody cares. It's all about that quick initial thing. And I get it.
So basically, what they were doing was they were playtesting the game themselves and patting themselves on the back for how good a job they were doing. And then they got in a bunch of people to playtest it as well that wouldn't give them any negative feedback whatsoever.
Yes.
Or barely gave them any negative feedback whatsoever. And so, yeah, it does at that point come out of the blue when suddenly you're getting honest feedback from people who are saying
his
no,
argument
you're
would
wrong.
be it's dishonest and it's piling on.
Right.
I don't
His
know for
argument-
sure, but there is a sentiment that if the game was, I tend to think if the game was good, it wouldn't have tanked as bad as it did.
Yeah. Yeah. If the game was actually good, then you would have had a lot of positive word of mouth. Now, it wouldn't have been as strong as the negative word of mouth tends to be, but you would have had a lot of people saying, this is an awesome game. You really need to play it. What we got instead is, this looks really bad. This looks cringe, people.
Well, let me at least push back and play devil's advocate. How do you know for sure that the positive response to a good game would be able to outweigh or push back against all the negativity? If there was a piling on that the piling on really just scared everybody away.
Well, I would say that the way you would know is if there really is a concerted effort to do a, as I say that for some reason there's a conspiracy to tank this game. I don't know that you would know. It would look exactly the same. But from what we see of games that do well, they don't have this negative piling on. Sure, there's some negativity. There are some people that come out and say, this, I have an issue with this, and this, and there may be a few people that jump on that. But you don't get the vitriol. You don't get that negative backlash.
I have an example that counters that.
Okay.
A lot of the initial sentiment with the Indiana Jones game was negative. We all expected it to be woke, and all of the stuff that we saw behind the scenes looked like it was going to be woke from the people that worked on it and whatnot. Now, was it perfectly the perfect game? No. But when it came out, everybody went, oh, it's actually pretty good. So there was a degree of negative perception, so to speak, coming out the gate with the Indiana Jones game. And that kind of got washed to the side because, in essence, the reaction of actually getting their hands on it was like, it's not remotely as woke as we thought it was going to be. There's a little bit.
What would have happened. That's what would have happened in this case.
What one would hope, and I think my only evidentiary response to that type of argument would be 97,000 people tried your game and left.
Yeah.
If they hated the game and were trying to destroy it, they wouldn't have showed up at the gate. They would have just lambasted it on the internet in a response to things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, the thing is that if they're really worried about this, that this was a piling on and there was somebody out to get them and whatnot, what would have happened is that it would have gotten lambasted. Just like Indiana Jones or The Circle or whatever. I forget what the full title is. But anyway, once people started playing it, they would have said, this isn't bad. You guys need to come play it. Most of the people, it seems like, from that graph you showed earlier, just said, no, it's not for me, and left.
I don't know if you can say that with certainty. I have another example. Ross, the genuine perception of Assassin's Creed Primal was bad when it came out.
Oh, you mean Far Cry? Yes.
The Far Cry Primal was negative when it came out, and it didn't do super well. You liked it.
Yeah, it's a genuinely, I think it's a really good game. Probably, I mean, I have to replay 2 and 3 and then play 1 finally. But it's probably, and it's in the top end of the games for me. So yeah, I do remember that game kind of going meh.
Yeah, there was a lot of like, well, whatever.
Make the Caveman one. Yeah, and then nobody really talked about it. That's what I remember.
What is the general consensus about the game now?
I don't know. I think for some people, the lack of guns is just too... You're talking Far Cry Primal?
Yeah.
Yeah. The lack of guns is just too big of a thing. If they play Far Cry, they want guns.
I saw a recent Reddit discussion on the Far Cry subreddit where somebody brought up what's people's perception of Far Cry Primal today. And most of the negative responses were they thought it was boring and there wasn't a story or whatever. And it's like, I've played it now since I finally finished out 4. And Primal, there's a story. But if you don't want to read the subtitles, you're going to get really bored really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to sit and read the subtitles because it's in a fakey caveman language. Yes, it is hard, and I think that's the thing that I like. Well, anyway, to me it did things that were really fun. That were it almost was a little bit more engaging or immersive, where especially early on in the game, like nighttime is terrifying.
The animals are so much scarier. Like
I came from
4 is one of the weirdestly most brutal animal. Like you're constantly attacked by everything in 4, and I get into Primal, and you run into like mammoths, and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing could destroy me.
Yeah, and like a pack of wolves, and they like one will come at you, but like two others are going to come from the side. God forbid you run into a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Like, and when it's nighttime, like the animals, like what's out in the world changes because some animals are nocturnal and others aren't. So like, there's a whole different set of predators that you run into at night, and some of them are way more aggressive. Or some predators are just you run into them in the day, but they are aggressive at night. Like it's, yeah, I don't know. I thought Primal was quite good,
But
yeah,
there are an odd amount of examples where the game many would consider to be pretty good, but got destroyed in ratings. Now, I'm not saying that the result of that was because of piling on. It's really hard. I'm doing that lady thing on a podcast where it's like, well, here's an exception, but that's not the rule. You know what I mean?
Right.
sure.
And it's like, well, not everybody. I'm just trying to be as fair in this discussion as possible. And when we say, well, it would do well even if it was bad, and it's like, that's not always true.
Well, I'm not saying that it would do well even if it was bad. I'm saying that what we got up to the point of launch was that there was a lot of bad press about it, and he feels blindsided, and his response to that was obviously there was somebody was out to get us and tank our game. It was a really great game. Otherwise, we all played it and really loved it, so everybody else should too. And what I was saying is that if it actually was a good game, once it got released, people would have played it and said, "Oh, actually, this is a good game." Not that they were been like, "Oh, this really is a terrible game. Keep playing it." Yeah. No. I find that. And as you pointed out with the previous Indiana Jones game, everybody was apprehensive. There was a lot of negative press about it. It got released, and they're like, actually, this is actually a pretty good game. And so a lot of people then started playing it. I was just curious, as with Far Cry Primal, you said that there was a lot of negative press about it, and Ross enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if the perception of Far Cry Primal had changed over time, and
Yeah,
people
I know.
were like, "Oh, this actually is a hidden gem,"
I
or if
don't.
people were still,
Besides anecdotal, I don't have any bigger evidence than that.
Yeah, it is pretty anecdotal. I think I think it was always pretty mixed. To be fair, I really do. Um, it launched when it launched. I think for some people just the lack of guns. Some people felt it was like a complete, which it wasn't because there's some things that carry over from Primal into 5. But anyway, that feel it was like just a complete like reskin of 4. And there's aspects of that in the game, but not entirely by any stretch. So yeah, I don't know. Like it, I think with this game, like with Highguard though, these kind of games, unless there's a major title update later, like as it is right now, is how people really feel about it on the whole, right?
because there
Um,
have been some
let me
games
reread a bit really quickly, just to re-clarify what he's trying to say. As if gamers have no power, but they do. A lot of it. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of gamer culture and that the game would have thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All products are at the whims of the consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard, and it worked.
Okay. I would say that two examples for you. What was the Cyberpunk 2077 and
Oh, that was
No
negative right
Man's
out the
Sky.
gate. Yeah. There was actually an unnaturally huge amount of hype for Cyberpunk. It came
Yeah.
out and there was a pile-on of hate for the state
Oh,
the
yeah.
game was in. And then I played it and I was like, actually, it's really good. It's just not busted for me.
Right. But the thing is both companies in those cases, with Cyberpunk 2077 and No Man's Sky, they both went back to the drawing board. and fixed the problems.
And the
that the game had.
Yeah, the game had changed perceptions later on.
Yeah. And so my question is, was Highguard in such a state that it could have been fixed, or was Highguard in such a state that nothing was going to save this turkey?
Well, clearly their attitude was nothing could save it because they laid off most of the dev team.
Yeah.
So they didn't think it was either could be fixed or worth trying.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, that to me, that they basically dumped this. That's a big indicator that the actual criticisms that were coming out about this game may have had some teeth.
maybe so. Let me continue a bit more. Many of Wildlife's former devs will now be forced to assimilate. Back in the actual corporate industry, many gamers accuse Wildlight of being a part of. Now, every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind in favor of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance. It's Wildlight, not Wildlife. I keep fumbling over that. Soon, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations. At least in the multiplayer space, innovation is on life support. Is this really an indie versus corporate thing? I find it hard to believe that the pylon had anything to do with their indie status or whatever.
No. But I think
No.
he's trying to lament. Well, anyway, we're almost done with this. I'll let you finish out the whole thing, and then we can, because there's some stuff in that paragraph in particular that I want to talk about.
All right. Even if Highguard had a rocky launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight deserved better than this. We deserve the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. I wish the best of luck to the few who remain at Wildlight and hope Highguard could stay the course. I still believe in it, and so do the fans we reached who continue to champion it on the subreddit, Discord, Twitch, and social media. And even though this adventure came to an abrupt and emotionally challenging close, I don't regret 1 second of it.
So, do you notice that third to last paragraph? So if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. And he had to put that in there, because you know what people would immediately say?
All of the other indie studios that are successful?
But what about Expedition 33?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it sold like gangbusters. I mean, you could even argue Baldur's Gate 3 to some degree. I mean...
Yeah.
The problem is some of these have bigger ties into the corporate world, even if they're not directly under a big corporate umbrella. Like Larian's kind of an odd case. But anyway, so it's like, yeah. But the thing is, there are a ton of indie multiplayer games. They just can't make $5 bajillion like Overwatch.
Yeah.
Like that's really hard for them to do. Now, but what they can do is. I mean, for a long time, there was like that BattleBit 64 game, which was basically Battlefield, but it kind of looked like Roblox.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's all of these, what they call friend swap multiplayer games, you know?
Oh, yeah.
They make tons of money. Arma Reforger, Squad, Hell Let Loose, I'm pretty sure is independent. The thing is, though, these are not games with hundreds of thousands or even millions of players concurrently every day. They have tens of thousands. Even at their healthiest. But the thing is, that's okay, because they had scope that could fit that. So it's just funny that he had to throw that in there, just because he knew he'd get piled on with, yeah, but what about Expedition 33? Because
it's funny,
indie games make a ton of money if they're good.
It's funny how he goes out of his way to say zero AI, because Expedition 33 had accusations of using AI for some early development stuff.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, pal, whatever.
And zero corporate oversight. I mean, I'm a fan. They might have. Well, and then you have Concord, but then how much corporate oversight did they really get? They just threw money into a hole and set it on fire with that game.
Yeah, and on top of that, Yeah, no corporate oversight, and yet you somehow made a game that, to everybody's first glance, looked like the most corporate, sloppy piece of shit game anyone's ever seen.
Right.
The most, yeah, but we're doing it too, game. I mean, everybody immediately wrote this off as uninspired, hero shooter crap. So, what did that no corporate oversight give you? Well, it got you a game that looked like everybody else's. Congratulations. Wow, it's a hero shooter with horses. Neat.
Can I point out something, Ross? He said, talking about how they're an independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people trying to make a fun game. and that because of that, they deserved better than this. Just because you're passionate and an indie studio doesn't mean you deserve anything.
No.
Doesn't mean a darn thing.
And I know this sounds cold and capitalist, but you deserve what you get. That's what you deserve.
You deserve what you earn.
Just because you're passionate about a game, and just because you put a lot of effort into the game, and just because you're an indie studio, doesn't mean that you deserve all of the success in the world. No one deserves anything.
No.
There are a lot of people out there. There are books out there. I guarantee you, there are books out there that are, some of the greatest books ever written. Amazing prose with interesting things to say that no one's read. Because no one cares. Everybody's reading romance novels, making out with cows. And this is the nature. This is the nature of the world. There's a lot of art that gets unnoticed. There's a lot of products that get unnoticed. You don't deserve anything. No one deserves anything. I could be like, this podcast deserves 2 bajillion views. We ain't getting it.
Yeah. And the part of that paragraph that is interesting to me is, we deserve the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. You don't get to choose that.
No, you don't.
That's not a thing anyone gets to choose, and it doesn't matter. Like, so would it feel better if nobody, like, Josh, Mr. Sobel,
If you will.
would it feel better for you if nobody had known about Highguard, it had come out and had the exact same number of players, and the reception was just as badly received? Let's say there was only 5 or 8,000 negative reviews rather than 14,000. Let's say there's only 2,000 negative reviews, but just like the proportions are all the same, just less. Would that, and you're still laid off, the company's still in the shitter, would it feel better? I doubt it.
Doubt it.
So
yeah.
like, look, dude, I'm sorry, but you don't get to choose how your downfall is viewed. And it's not even don't personalize it. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
It's the company's downfall, not yours. Like, I can see by your wording, you're like personalizing it, and I'm sure you had a great time making this game with people you worked with, or at least I hope you did, because that kind of work environment's great. Don't personalize it.
Probably because they were passionate about it.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I'm glad you had that experience, but dude, you don't get to choose how people view this company eating a big one, or this game eating a big one. You don't get to choose. People can view it however they want. Like, people laugh when others die. Like, this, a game don't matter. It just doesn't. And I'm sure it hurts to see hundreds, thousands of hours of yours, of work, put into this, and nobody care. But, that's how it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, man. It's tough.
Not everything we do is a success.
No.
Even
It's
if
the way it is.
we put a lot of effort into it and passion into it, not everything we do works out.
The gaming industry is littered with beloved studios who made games that people liked that were either great, and then a couple of bad, like either flawed ones or rushed ones or whatever, and then the studio's dead. Or just like mixed in with like flawed masterpieces, quote unquote, right? Like just flawed, beloved games. The industry's littered with their graves. Like, that's just the way it goes. What was like Westwood, Troika. I mean, there's so many. And it's just the way it goes, man. This is a brutal industry for that. And people like to act like corporate slop games are like a newer thing. No. Do you remember what it was way back in the day? It was movie tie-in games. Anybody remember those?
Oh, yeah.
I
I do.
remember those.
I loved it, even
Really
though they
cheap.
were bad.
Most of them
Yeah.
are terrible.
And people pissed and moaned about them, just decrying that this is what the industry is. These games get, just stamped out and pushed out every which way but loose. But like that, it made them money, and because Grandma knows what Harry Potter is, and she knows that her little Timmy likes Harry Potter, so she bought him the Game Boy Color version of Harry Potter. Like,
Yep.
it's the way it goes, man. And not everything beautiful and amazing and great, which I don't think Highguard is, but let's just assume we're going to agree with that. Doesn't mean it gets the recognition. There's so many games that have just been fallen by the wayside because of that.
Yeah, and this is all forms of creation, artistic endeavor, product. A lot of things get destroyed and thrown to the side just because they don't stand out enough. I mean, imagine making the greatest hero shooter today. How successful do you think it will be when we're already moving out of the hero shooter era and nobody's interested?
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, maybe 8 years ago, this would have been the greatest hero shooter we'd ever seen. Just maybe Concord would have been it. I don't know. But the reality is, the market can't bear any more of them.
And the trend has moved on.
Yep, completely. And that's okay. But like, why are we acting like this is such a shock that this game didn't do that good? It looked, well, nobody's shocked but Josh Sobel, I guess. But like, it just didn't look interesting. I'm sorry, man. Like, well, it's not no corporate oversight. Yeah, but it looked like it was.
On your question about how a game, if you released the best hero shooter, bar none, right now, I mean, it would have to be so good that not only would it eclipse any other hero shooter in order for people to come flocking back to it, but it would have to eclipse every other genre as well. So it's not just enough for the hero shooter to be the best hero shooter that's ever been released. It almost needs to be the best hero shooter plus best video game ever been released to get people returning to hero shooters.
Yeah.
Why would I invest the time and effort into another hero shooter when I've already got a pretty good one right over here that I've already been, working on for however long? So, and on top of that, I have 5, 10, 15 more video games in my queue that I haven't been able to play yet. So you got to be able to jump the queue to really go gangbusters here.
And on top of that, or have a really good anime made about your game, like in the setting.
Yeah.
Like that's your other
Cyberpunk.
option. That's what
The reboot.
That's what saves Cyberpunk, along with genuine updates to try and fix the mess that it was.
Fix the mess. And look, the anime wouldn't have saved Cyberpunk if Cyberpunk actually at its core wasn't actually good.
Yeah.
Right.
If it wasn't interesting or fun, the anime wouldn't have done much for it in the grand scheme.
No. But the game actually was good. Weirdly enough. It just didn't
you would
get
have seen a bump. It just would have tapered off immediately, but you saw a bump and then it kept going. I mean, I remember because I got my Series X right around when that happened, and I wanted to get Cyberpunk, and you couldn't find it physically. I wanted it physically. So
yeah,
because I'm an old man.
Yeah, I had a weird outsized experience with that game because everybody out the gate was talking about how bad it was and how broken it was and whatnot, and because everybody was moving PlayStation, like this generation, PlayStation was a big winner. I got an Xbox Series X, and it wasn't busted on Xbox Series X. So when I played it, I was sitting there going, I don't know why everybody's complaining. The game's not as broken as people make it out to be. I think there was like 1 or 2 crashes in the many hours I played it, and there was maybe one quest that was busted that I couldn't finish. But by and large, I didn't have any problems. And for some reason, it just worked really well on Series X. And so my experience wasn't everybody's experience, wasn't the normal experience. It was fine, and I actually had a blast playing it.
Yeah, I don't know. On one hand, I feel bad for Mr. Sobel here. Like, it's a bummer that he feels so badly about this, but like, dude. The other thing I noticed too is at the end he's like, I want to shout out some incredibly supportive journalists and creators who genuinely made a night and day difference during the past 2 months. All these folks deserve far more credit than they get for their empathy, intuition, and integrity. Had I known this section of this was in here, I would have gone and like tried to find if all of these reviews are positive. Because if they are, like, that's very telling on Sobel's mindset.
Thanks for all of the people that had an outsized positive perspective on our game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being harsh, but like, are they all positive? Or has one of them got like a 4 out of 10 in there, or a 6 out of 10, or a 5 out of 10? Or are they all like 7 and 8s? You know, I'm just curious.
I mean, I'm not unsympathetic to the situation you find yourself in. But it's an industry where you got to stand out and figure out a way to earn money. And simply because you made a game you're passionate about doesn't mean you deserve anything or success or whatever you want to claim. It's a business, and you have to be able to succeed. It would be one thing if everything I make with passion and effort is rewarded, but that's just not true.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, look at Bethesda. They made Daggerfall, which was a pretty big hit, and then they did Battlespire and Redguard, terrible flops, and had Morrowind not been the huge hit it was, and had it not been on the Xbox console, which got them even more sales, they would have been done for. Bethesda wouldn't exist. So like it like they were desperate. So I mean, this like even the biggest game companies, even companies that had 2 successes behind them, can have. All it takes is a couple of flops, and you're done. And this is essentially an independent studio. Their first game's a AAA game. Like, what are we doing? You're just burning up all your funding in one go on a genre that's dying. Like,
you don't dip your toe into the water. You go way, balls deep and try and
just go absolutely ham. Don't take some contracts to make like either DLC or like small little like sub games for something else. No, we're going AAA hero shooter right out the gate. Like, what do we, like? Did nobody think this was maybe a bad idea? Whatever.
Oh, they were passionate about it. Remember?
Yeah, that's all it takes, right?
It's got horses. I guess it makes it different.
One of the things that's been occurring to me as we've been talking about this is that obviously, this article was called Toxic Positivity for a reason. And the part of that reason is that if they had been told beforehand that maybe their game might not be as good as they thought it was, that maybe they would have been able to avert disaster.
Just to clarify, Jason, our segment's called Toxic Positivity. He did not title his article Toxic Positivity. That was my inference as to what was the problem going on in the background.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've been talking about this toxic positivity. Let me rephrase that. So we've been talking about toxic positivity just for this particular reason, because he was saying that everybody in their company was playing the game and they all loved it, and they got a whole bunch of guys from outside and they came in and they said what a great game this was. And we've talked about kind of the reason for that. You bring in these people from outside, they're incentivized to not say bad things about your game, because if they do, you won't invite them back. They end up losing that access. Is there anything that can be done, do you guys think, to fix that?
To make fix that type of problem, or fix the game?
Yeah, because it seems to me that if they had brought people in from outside, and these people from outside were actually honest about the game, it could have given them some perspective, and they could have said, you know what, we need to go back to the drawing board and fix this before we release it, because we're getting this feedback from these people that we've invited in to test this game.
I have an example. There's a weird thing that exists in Japanese culture where, because of restrictions of Japanese culture, they don't feel comfortable approaching management or their bosses and being honest about ideas that they don't like, or saying things outright that they don't like. Like, nobody, because of how the culture is set, there's a difficulty in actually expressing negative perception of the direction the company's going, or decision making, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they bring in a weird turn of events, an American who has none of these cultural hangups, none of them. And that American's role is to express the opinions of all of the other employees. So the American will go into a meeting or go talk to the boss and be like, none of them like this. This is bad. Everybody hates what you're doing, because he doesn't care. And we're talking about an issue that's been a recognizable problem in business everywhere. Everywhere. I've read books about talking about how difficult it is to understand honest, genuine feedback, and to get honest, genuine feedback, because oftentimes either the business doesn't want to hear it, or people don't share it freely. And it's one of the most vital things to the success of your company. And I don't know if there's an easy answer, because there are places like McDonald's that still struggle to make sure that they get honest feedback on whether or not their food is good or bad. There are massive multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar corporations that struggle to get really good, honest feedback, whether or not they're interested or not. I mean, look at the countless examples of movies where we sat there and went, this is a bad idea just at the face of it. Just at the face, this looks like a bad idea. And at some point, they should have had somebody sitting in the room going, this sounds stupid. But they don't have those people in the room because they're not interested in hearing the negativity, or they think that it's illegitimate or whatever. And then the movie comes out and it gets destroyed. Like, nobody goes and sees it. Like the Snow White, everybody should have recognized that wasn't going to work out. Everybody should have recognized, but no one was sitting in the room going, hey, you guys, this is going to lose money and this is a bad idea. And they're like, no, it's a good idea. What are you talking about? And I think that this element of toxic positivity, in this case in Highguard, my theory at least, or in a lot of businesses and stuff in the pop culture sphere, is that there's a lack of interest in hearing negativity. There's a lack of interest in actually reacting or responding to fan feedback. And when they do put stuff out, they want to actually attack or accuse the fans of being the problem, and not actually, like in the case of Highguard, it doesn't seem like it's offensive. It's just, it's not a game anybody wants to play.
Yeah.
And at some point you should have heard somebody go, hero shooters are kind of dead right now, and you're chasing a trend that's just over. Yeah. Like, somebody should have brought that up.
Yeah, and I mean, because it's hard to know what they're, we can infer a lot about their corporate culture, but like, you got to get people that are brutally honest. Like, did you have your friends and family play test this? Like, what's the deal? Was it just journalists, or like
your overly positive girlfriend that's really supportive?
Yeah, because like I was just thinking about. I remember watching like behind the scenes stuff with like Halo 1 and 2 and 3 to a lesser degree, and I remember them these developers talk about talking about play testing their own game themselves, and like they would be brutally honest. Like, yeah, this sucks. Like, this isn't working. Like, you need to have that yourself. I mean, the fact that nobody thought to go like you said, Rhett. I mean, even just as an employee, like, just raise their hand and go like, a hero shooter? Are you
really
super sure about that? Or when they were getting the art style in and going like, hey, this looks really like bland and samey, like every Overwatch clone ever. Like, are you sure about that? Like, nobody wanted to raise their hand. It's just baffling. I there's kind of a thing going around online for a while now. I mean, this is nothing new per se, the last few years at least. But the gaming industry used to be filled with, like, on the development end, with people who liked games, and now I'm not so sure that's true. Because, I mean, how did nobody raise their hand at any point with some of these games, like Concord, like Highguard, like Assassin's Creed Shadows,
Yeah.
like Ghosts of Yotei, and go like, why are we making this choice? What information is leading us to believe this is a good idea? Because some of this stuff is so blatant. I don't know, because there's games that come out that are a mess, that are just not good, and it's obvious they either had feature creep or they had too many irons in the fire. Like those games are very obvious. They're very easy to see. Frankly, Cyberpunk 2077 was probably one of those.
Yeah.
They had a lot of things they wanted to do, and they couldn't get it all done.
Too many promises.
No Man's Sky, very famously, probably the most blatant, obvious one.
To be fair, every
there's
Peter Molyneux game.
Oh my God! Every Peter Molyneux.
We forget about Peter Molyneux, but he was the notorious promises the moon and doesn't deliver.
Yep. Oh yeah. People, listen, children. He was the bane of gaming because he would promise the coolest shit. Yeah. And at best, the game was fun and had none of that shit in it.
Well, that's what's so weird about his games too. Is it got to the point where we got so used to it that it's like, hey, Fable is a lot of fun, so we end up sort of shrugging. But when he makes a lot of promises, even reporters would be like, yeah, we don't know if any of that's going to be in there.
Yeah. I mean, what was the thing in Fable? You can plant a seed and see it grow into a tree throughout the game. No. That's not in there.
Yeah, none of that.
That's not a thing. And that's fine. Turns out it didn't need it. But you can't just go yapping out, like shooting off from the hip
over promise
with promises. Yeah, you can't do that. And it was like, oh my God, oh Peter. But I don't know, man. It makes you wonder. Maybe people just want to I'm just going to keep my head down and I just want to get the money and the benefits and we're going to move on. Or if it's genuinely they think it's a good idea, and I could see both. Both are very plausible, but
in this case, it sounds like the one rather than the other.
Yeah, I think it's
that everybody thought this was a great idea. There was a lot of passion behind this project, and it, at least to me, it could be that some of these outsiders that they brought in, that for them it was the other, obviously, because they're on the receiving end of an invite, and they could be perceiving that as, if I actually tell you what I really think, if I give you my actual honest opinion, you won't invite me back.
Yeah, and I mean, you need to tell these people, I need you to be brutally honest. Like, even though this is going to be a free-to-play game, I need you to tell me, would you spend money on this?
See,
would you spend your time on this?
Me and Ross have had multiple times where we sat down and watched the big E3 stuff or whatnot, and I realized we would have a lot of you know what, that's not too bad. I wouldn't mind playing it, and I changed the rules when we would sit and watch it because it was, would you play this if this was free, or would you pay money for this? And overwhelmingly, we wouldn't pay money for any of them. No. Maybe one or two, and that's a big difference. It's like, if it's on Game Pass, I'll play it. I'm not going to buy that game.
Yeah. I think we finally had to narrow it down to would pay money, Game Pass.
Never.
Just no.
No.
Yeah, not even free. Because
not
there was a lot of I don't, it was.
We had a lot of that where it's it looked okay,
Yeah, there's an interesting thing in there. Maybe I'll download it and try it. But then it finally had to be no, we gotta be a little bit more critical here.
Yeah, are you buying this game? No. Well, there you go.
And I remember I have one of my lists around here somewhere. I think I moved the notebook, but my list of like would pay for got down to like I think it was less than 10, like a lot less than 10. It was just a handful, and it's like, yeah, oh well. Sorry, gaming industry.
Final thoughts on what this guy had to say before we shift out of this into the news dump.
I don't know. I think that in a lot of ways, this is a coping mechanism. They can't deal with their own failure, and so they are trying to point the blame at something else rather than themselves.
It's not me. It's the children that are wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
That feels very much on the nose here. It's not me. It's you guys. The other thing is that they really need to stop putting in place a structure that rewards only good opinions. If they don't, they're never going to get a good opinion that's honest, that actually helps them improve. They're only going to get yes men.
What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, look, like Mr. Sobel, I'm sure this has been hard for you, and I'm sorry that if you got any of that personal stuff, like that sucks. Although I don't know what to tell you, you seem to be a millennial age. Obviously, you've been on the internet. Like, come on, man. Like, you need to look out for yourself a little more. Like, but beyond that, yeah, it's not the gamer's fault. Your game will be perceived how it is perceived. Like, there was no coordinated backlash. People watched the trailer. They thought it was so bland. People were like, this has got to be fake. Like, yeah, yep. Sometimes games don't work, and it happens. To be fair to you, Mr. Sobel, I've never been on the receiving end of that. I'm not a game developer. I can imagine that really hurts and that sucks, but it's the way it goes, man. Maybe this company that, granted you weren't ahead of this company, but maybe this company shouldn't have made a AAA game right out the gate. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's another.
But yeah, I think toxic positivity is clearly a problem, or at the very least, a complete disconnect from like the rest of the gaming industry, or like from a whole section of the gaming industry, and that is the people that buy them. Like, how did you not think they would look at this and be like, wow, it looks like everything else that's a hero shooter?
I mean, that was my theory. That it was some sort of internal positivity that they just weren't willing to listen.
Yeah. And it's got to be that. And that's a shame, because theoretically a lot of talent there, and it got used on something so goddamn bland.
Yeah.
Oh well.